So we'll continue from tomorrow. The book I'm reading, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So yesterday we stopped at page 14, and one more time I would like to repeat that this is an amazing author who has written this book, and it is considered to be one of the greatest self-help book. So I'm talking about Dale Carnegie, and this book is called as How to Win Friends and Influence People. So yesterday we talked about the different incidents in life, that how people don't want to blame themselves for anything what happens, what goes on in their life. And it is better, but people who are more sensible, they should actually not criticize people, because criticism never is useful or beneficial. So, starting from page 15 today, the next time we are tempted to admonish somebody, let's pull a $5 bill out of your pocket, look at Lincoln's picture on the bill, and ask, how would Lincoln handle this problem if he had it? तो अगली बार जब आप ऐसा सोचें, किसी की बेइज्जती करनी है, किसी को क्रिटिसाइज करना है, उसके पहले आप अब चूंकि हम लोग इंडिया में रहते हैं, तो हम लोग भारत के ही बारे में बात करेंगे। तो कोई ऐसा नोट निकालें 500 रुपए का, जिसमें महात्मा गांधी का फोटो, और आप सोचें कि लिंकन क्या करते। अब बिकॉज आपके पास $5 तो होगा नहीं। और ये एग्जाम्पल जो है वो लिंकन के बारे में, क्योंकि लिंकन ने एक बहुत बड़ी जो उनके यहाँ लड़ाई हुई थी गेटिसबर्ग की, उसमें अपने जनरल को बहुत अब्यूज करना चाहा, लेकिन सेंसिबिलिटी के साथ उन्होंने नहीं किया। सो बेसिकली द पॉइंट इज, यू शुड नॉट क्रिटिसाइज एनीवन. Okay, so jokes apart, now let's continue reading. Mark Twain lost his temper occasionally. Mark Twain एक बहुत बड़े author थे, and wrote letters that turned the paper brown. For example, he once wrote to a man who had aroused his ire, "The thing for you is a burial permit. You have only to speak, and I will see that you get it." On another occasion, he wrote to an editor about a proofreader's attempt to improve my spelling and punctuation. He ordered, set the matter according to my copy hereafter, and see that the proofreader retains his suggestions in the mush of his decayed brain. मतलब इतने बड़े ऑथर और उनका इतना ज्यादा गुस्सा, मतलब मुझे भी बहुत ही हंसी आ रही है एक्चुअली कि इतने इतने ज्यादा प्रतिभाशाली लोगों के अंदर इतना गुस्सा भरा हुआ है। मुझे तो हंसी ही आ रही है कि अगर किसी को गुस्सा आ जाए, तो उन्होंने कहा कि ये तुम्हारा बेरियल परमिट है। और the writing of these stinking letters made Mark Twain feel better. इससे मार्क ट्वेन को बड़ा अच्छा लगता था. They allowed him to blow off steam, and the letters didn't do any real harm, because Mark's wife secretly lifted them out of the mail. They were never sent. तो ऐसी ऐसी चिट्ठियां लिखने के बाद मार्क ट्वेन को बड़ा अच्छा फील होता था, उनका गुस्सा निकल जाता था, और वो बड़े किस्मत वाले थे लिटरली, कि उनकी वाइफ जो है वो कभी भी इन चिट्ठियों को मेल में जाने नहीं देती थी। यानी वो जिनके लिए वो बना था, लिखा था उन्होंने, वो उन व्यक्तियों तक कभी पहुंच नहीं पाया। दैट वाज रियली नाइस ऑफ हर, और उन्होंने बहुत बचाया मार्क ट्वेन को। लेकिन ऐसा गुस्सा तो करना ही नहीं चाहिए। अगर ऐसा गुस्सा रियल लाइफ में किसी को आता है, ऐसे ये भी रियल लाइफ की ही बात है, क्योंकि मार्क ट्वेन तो मतलब ही एग्जिस्टेड इन रियलिटी। लेकिन अगर अगर किसी को गुस्सा इतना ज्यादा आता है, मुझे तो नहीं आता गुस्सा बिल्कुल भी। मुझे तो हंसी ही आती है। तो बेटर है कि आप अपने गुस्से पर, एंगर मैनेजमेंट पर वर्क करें। इट्स लाइक आई एम फीलिंग कि अगर मार्क ट्वेन मेरे क्लाइंट होते तो कैसा होता। कैसा कैसा बोलते, शायद पता नहीं। ओके, लेट्स कंटिन्यू रीडिंग. डू यू नो समवन you would like to change and regulate and improve? Good. That is fine. I am all in favor of it. But why not begin on yourself? But बहुत सही बात है. From a purely selfish standpoint, that is a lot more profitable than trying to improve others. Easiest है, I would say, मतलब मैं अपने बच्चों को भी सुधारने की जल्दी कोशिश नहीं करती, क्योंकि जो मूल वृत्ति होती है, यानी आप जिस चीज से बने होते हैं, यू रियली कैन नॉट चेंज. आई नेवर एवर ट्राई. आई सजेस्ट, help to suggest as a counselor and coach, but never, what we can say कि instruct. ना instruction लेना, ना instruction देना. I don't think that, this is right for anyone. So, do you know someone you would like to change and regulate and improve? So, never tried that. From a purely selfish standpoint, that is a lot more profitable than trying to improve others. That is so true. अगर हम खुद ही पर काम कर लें तो बेहतर होगा. अगर सब लोग खुद ही पर काम कर लें तो सभी अच्छे हो जाएंगे. Yes, and lot less dangerous. Don't complain about the snow on your neighbor's roof, said Confucius, when your own doorstep is unclean. इसी पे मुझे याद आ रही है एक कहावत कि जिनके घर शीशे के होते हैं, ये ऐसे तो फिल्म का डायलॉग है, उन्हें उन्हें दूसरों के घर में पत्थर नहीं मारने चाहिए. बिल्कुल सही बात है. कुछ उसी तरह की बात ये भी है. तो कन्फ्यूशियस एक बहुत बड़े चाइनीज विचारक थे, और उन्होंने कहा कि आपको किसी दूसरे के पड़ोसी के छत पर बर्फ होने की शिकायत नहीं करनी चाहिए जब आपका खुद का दरवाजा गंदा है. When I was still young and trying hard to impress people, I wrote a foolish letter to Richard Harding Davis, an author who once loomed large on the literary horizon of America. I was preparing a magazine article about authors, and I asked Davis to tell me about his method of work. A few weeks earlier, I had received a letter from someone with this notation at the bottom: dictated but not read. I was quite impressed. I felt that the writer must be very big and busy and important. I wasn't the slightest bit busy, but I was eager to make an impression on Richard Harding Davis. So I ended my short note with the words, dictated but not read. मतलब लिखवाया है, पढ़ा नहीं. He never troubled to answer the letter. He simply returned it to me with this scribbled across the bottom: your bad manners are exceeded only by your bad manners. True, I had blundered, and perhaps I deserved this rebuke, but being human, I resented it. I resented it so sharply that when I read the death of Richard Harding Davis 10 years later, the one thought that still persisted in my mind, I'm ashamed to admit, was the hurt he had given me. बहुत सही बात है. लोग बड़े मतलब ये जो जज करने वाली जो बात होती है ना, बिना सोचे समझे अपने आप को अथॉरिटी समझ के, वो नहीं करना चाहिए. बिल्कुल सही बात है. If you want, if you and I went to stir up resentment tomorrow, that may rankle across the decades and endure until death. Just let us indulge in a little stinging criticism. No matter how certain we are, it is justified. ये मतलब ये बात जो है, ये मेरे दिल के बहुत करीब है कि जैसे ही अगर आप किसी को सिखाने, स्पेशली अगर कोई एडल्ट है, उसको सिखाने की कोशिश करते हैं, उसमें बहुत केयरफुल होना चाहिए, क्योंकि मेरा काम ही सिखाने का है. तो आई हैव ऑलवेज ऑब्जर्व एंड आई टॉक वेरी केयरफुली इवन विद माय स्टूडेंट्स, जो जनरली बच्चे होते हैं, कि उनको क्या पता है, वहां से शुरुआत करनी चाहिए. क्योंकि लोग जो है वो सीखना नहीं चाहते, और कई बार बच्चे भी नहीं, उनका अप्रोच नहीं होता, एटीट्यूड नहीं होता. तो सजेशन हो सकता है, बिकॉज मेरा जो काम है वहाँ पे आई हैव टू सजेस्ट, बट यू कैन नॉट फोर्स अपॉन. दैट इज ट्रू. आई टोटली अग्री. when dealing when dealing with people, let us remember we are not dealing with creatures of logic. We are dealing with creatures of emotion. That is so true. Creatures bristling with prejudices and motivated by pride and vanity. Every now and then I come across this observation कि लोग जो है वो एक नोशन बनाते हैं आपके बारे में, and then express, then say without listening to themselves कि वो बोल क्या रहे हैं. That is always very interesting to hear. Bitter criticism caused the sensitive Thomas Hardy, one of the finest novelists ever to English literature to give up forever the writing of fiction. Criticism drove Thomas Chatterton, the English poet, to suicide. जो बहुत थॉमस हार्डी भी एक बहुत बड़े राइटर थे और उनका बहुत ही कड़ी निंदा की गई उनकी, तो उन्होंने सुसाइड कर लिया। और हम लोगों ने कल भी पढ़ा था कि एक जो प्रेसिडेंट थे, वो तो टेंशन और स्ट्रेस और वरी की वजह से ही उनकी मृत्यु हो गई, क्योंकि वो ज़िंदगी भर यही सोचते रह गए कि उनके बेस्ट फ्रेंड ने उनके साथ चीटिंग की। Benjamin Franklin, tactless in his youth, becomes so diplomatic, so adroit at handling people that he was made American ambassador to France. The secret of his success: I will speak ill of no man, he said, and speak all the good I know of everybody. Wonderful, wonderful. ये एक्सपीरियंस से ही आता है कि आप किसी को छोटा ना समझें, बिलिटल ना करें, उनको इन्फीरियर ना समझें किसी भी तरह से। बहुत सही बात है। A great man, but it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. ये भी सही बात है। ये कई जब लोग बूढ़े भी हो जाते हैं, उन लोगों में भी ये चीज़ नहीं होती, उनके अंदर भी कई बार ईगो इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग होता है कि आप चौंक जाएँगे। जबकि उम्र बढ़ती है, तो एक्चुअली इसी को मैच्योरिटी बोलते हैं। इन माय ओपिनियन दिस इज़ मैच्योरिटी, कि आप जो है सामने वाले को कैसे ट्रीट करते हैं और कितने अंडरस्टैंडिंग एंड फॉरगिविंग हैं। Bob Hoover, a famous test pilot and frequent performer at air shows, was returning to his home in Los Angeles from an air show in San Diego. As described in the magazine Flight Operations, at 300 feet in the air, both engineers suddenly stopped. Both engines suddenly stopped. By deft maneuvering, he managed to land the plane, but it was badly damaged, although nobody was hurt. Hoover's first act after the emergency landing was to inspect the airplane's fuel. Just as he suspected, the World War II propeller plane he had been flying had been fueled with jet fuel rather than the gasoline. Upon returning to the airport, he asked to see the mechanic who had serviced his airplane. The young man was sick with the agony of his mistake. Tears streamed down his face as Hoover approached. He had just caused the loss of a very expensive plane and could have caused the loss of 3 lives as well. कितना बड़ा नुकसान हो सकता था एक छोटी सी गलती की वजह से सॉरी, जिसमें प्लेन में सही तरह का फ्यूल नहीं डाला गया, तो 3 जिंदगियां खतरे में थीं और प्लेन तो खराब खैर हो ही गया। You can imagine Hoover's anger. One would anticipate the tongue lashing that this proud and precise pilot would unleash for that carelessness. But Hoover didn't scold the mechanic. He didn't even criticize him. Instead, he put his big arm around the man's shoulder and said, "To show you I'm sure that you will never do this again, I want you to service my F-51 tomorrow." ये तो मतलब बहुत ही ज़्यादा है कि उन्होंने गुस्सा तो नहीं किया ऑब्वियसली। उल्टा ये कहा कि मैं चाहता हूँ कि तुम कभी दोबारा ये गलती ना करो। इसलिए उनकी जो दूसरी फ्लाइट थी F-51 उसको सर्विस कर दो। Often parents are tempted to criticize their children. You would expect me to say, don't, but I will not. I am merely going to say, before you criticize them, read one of the classics of American journalism, Father Forgets. It originally appeared as an editorial in the People's Home Journal. We are reprinting it here with the author's permission as condensed in the Reader's Digest. Father Forgets is one of those little pieces which, dashed in a moment of sincere feeling, strikes an echoing chord in so many readers as to become a perennial reprint favorite. Since its first appearance, Father Forgets has been reproduced, writes the author W. Livingston Learn, in hundreds of magazines and house organs. The newspaper the country over. It has been reprinted almost as extensively in many foreign languages. I have given personal permission to thousands who wished to read it from school, church, and lecture platforms. It has been on the air on countless occasions and programs. Oddly enough, college periodicals have used it, and high school magazines. Sometimes a little piece seems mysteriously to click. This one didn't. तो अब मैं वो पैसेज पढ़ने वाली हूँ जिसके बारे में इतनी चर्चा हुई कि बहुत बार इसे लिखा गया। ये ऑन एयर भी जा चुका है, मोस्ट प्रॉब्ली इन द फॉर्म ऑफ रेडियो। तो फादर फॉरगेट्स, ऑथर है डब्ल्यू लिविंगस्टन लर्नेट। लिसन सन, आई एम सेइंग दिस एज यू लाई asleep. One little paw crumbled under your cheek, and the blonde curls stickily wet on your damp forehead. I have stolen into your room alone. Just a few minutes ago, as I sat reading my paper in the library, stifling wave of remorse swept over me. Guiltily, I came to your bedside. There are things I was thinking, son. I had been cross to you. I scolded you as you were dressing for school because you gave your face merely a dab with towel. I took you to task for not cleaning your shoes. I called out angrily when you threw some of your things on the floor. At breakfast, I found fault too. You spilled things, you gulped down your food, you put your elbows on the table, you spread butter too thick on your bread. And as you started off to play, and I made for my train, you turned and waved a hand and called, "Goodbye, Daddy." And I frowned and I said in reply, "Hold your shoulders back." Then it began all over again. In the late afternoon, as I came up the road, I spied you down on your knees playing marbles. There were holes in your stockings. I humiliated you before your boyfriends by marching before your boyfriends by marching you ahead of me to the house. Stockings were expensive, and if you had to buy them, you would be more careful. Imagine that, son, from the father. Do you remember later that when I was reading in the library how you came in timidly with a sort of hurt in your eyes when I glanced up over my paper, impatient at an interruption? You hesitated at the door. "What is it you want?" I snapped. You said nothing but ran across in the tempestuous plunge and threw your arms around my neck and kissed me. And your small arms tightened with an affection that God had set blooming in your heart and which even neglect would not wither. And then you were gone, pattering up the stairs. Well, son, it was shortly after that. My paper slipped from my hands, and a terrible, sickening fear came over me. What has habit been doing to me? The habit of finding fault, of reprimanding this way. This was my reward to you for being a boy. It was not that I did not love you, it was that I expected too much of the youth. I was measuring you by the yardstick of my own years. And there was so much that was good and fine and true in your character, the little heart of you as big as the dawn itself over the wide hills. This was shown by your spontaneous impulse to rush in and kiss me. Good night. Nothing else matters tonight, son, so I have come to your bedside in the darkness and I have knelt there, ashamed. It's a feeble atonement. I know you would not understand these things if I told them to you during your waking hours, but tomorrow I'll be a real daddy. I will chum with you and suffer when you suffer and laugh when you laugh. I will bite my tongue when impatient word come. I will keep saying as if it were ritual, he's nothing but a boy, a little boy. I'm afraid that I have visualized you as a man, yet as I see you now, son, crumpled and weary in your cot, I see you are still a baby. Yesterday you were in your mother's arms, your head on her shoulder. I have asked too much, too much. Instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do that. They do. There's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism. Sorry, I have to. It was actually, honestly, very, very heartfelt. And yeah, I would say I would agree that I have also felt sometimes. And my son is very similar to this boy. Um, but I am always like, I'm very careful with my tone. That I do, because it hurts. And it is very important to make sure that how you make people feel, because that people will always remember. That is one of the things I have learned in my own life. And I always try to make people feel better. Okay, I think I am back, as in, like, I'm composed. So instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. There is a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. As Dr. Johnson said, God Himself, sir, does not propose to judge man until the end of his days. बहुत ही खूबसूरत. Why should you and I, जब तक अंतिम सांसें नहीं आती जाती हैं, तब तक ईश्वर भी नहीं किसी को जज करते, राइट? तो हम लोग क्यों नहीं? बहुत अच्छा. The big secret of dealing with people. Now, this is the chapter 2. There is only one way under high heaven to get anybody to do anything. Did you ever stop to think that? Yes, just one way. And that is by making the other person want to do it. So, there is only one way कि आप किसी से कुछ करा सकते हैं. There is just one way. That means, और वो एक तरीका क्या है कि वो सामने वाला व्यक्ति चाहे, कि वो चाहता है. एक्चुअली लाइफ कोचिंग का ये सबसे बड़ा प्रिंसिपल है. When you are doing life coaching for a person, you have to make them feel कि they want to do it. It should come from them. They should know their why I want this. Remember, there is no other way. Totally agree. Of course, you can make someone want to give you his watch by sticking a revolver in his ribs. You can make your employees give you cooperation until your back is turned by threatening to fire them. You can make a child do what you want it to do by a whip or a threat. But these crude methods have sharply undesirable repercussions. The only way I can get you to do anything is by giving you what you want. What do you want? Sigmund Freud, that means father of psychology, that everything you and I do springs from two motives: the sex urge and the desire to be great. Very true. John Dewey, one of the America's most profound philosophers, phrased it a bit differently. Dr. Dewey said the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. Remember the phrase, the desire to be important. It is significant. You're going to hear a lot about it in this book. What do you want? Not many things, but the few that you do wish. You crave with an insistence that will not be denied. Some of the things most people want include. और ये भी एक मतलब आई डोंट नो कि इसमें लिखा है या नहीं, बट आई वुड लाइक टू ऐड कि सारे लोगों को वही चीज़ नहीं चाहिए होती है जो आपको चाहिए होती है. सब लोगों का वांट जो है ना वो भी अलग होता है. तो उस वांट को समझना सामने वाले के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है कि आपका क्या वांट है, बिकॉज दैट विल डिटरमाइन द वे द पर्सन लिव्स. So most of the things people they want in their life is health and preservation of life, food, sleep, money and the things money will buy, life in the hereafter, sexual gratification, the well-being of our children, and the feeling of importance. Almost all these wants are usually gratified, all except one. But there is no one longing almost as deep, almost as imperious as a desire for food or sleep, which is seldom gratified. It is what Freud calls the desire to be great, and Dewey calls the desire to be important. ज़्यादातर लोगों में ये चीज़ हो सकती है, आई एग्री। बट एक्चुअली एज़ अ पार्ट ऑफ फुलफिल्ड लाइफ, ये जो है ना डिज़ायर टू बी इम्पोर्टेंट, इट शुड बी जस्ट लिमिटेड टू अस। Are you important enough in your own life? If you are important in your own life, then you are not seeking that validation outside. I realized it quite a few years ago because I think I'm also a human and I wanted the feeling of importance, but I realized that actually no one is validating my feelings or my me. So I think then suddenly, it was a bulb moment for me. Why not me then? I'm a human. I can validate my own feelings. And that changed me. That was one of the things which changed me. So, Lincoln once began a letter saying, "Everybody likes a compliment." I don't believe the compliment. William James said, because there is always a motive behind any compliment. There is hardly, a truth nowadays, especially. He, people really mean that. There is always a motive. That's what my observation is. So William James said, the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. He didn't speak mind you. He didn't speak, mind you, of the wish or the desire of the longing to be appreciated. He said, the craving to be appreciated. He is a gnawing and unfaltering human hunger, and the rare individual who honestly satisfies his hunger will hold people in the palm of his or her hand, and even the undertaker will be sorry when he dies. The desire for a feeling of importance is one of the chief distinguishing differences between mankind and the animals. To illustrate, when I was a farm boy out in Missouri, my father bred fine Duroc Jersey hogs and pedigreed white faced cattle. We used to exhibit our hogs and white faced cattle at the country fairs and livestock shows throughout the Middle West. Missouri is the name of the state in US और वहाँ पे मतलब ना फार्मिंग और कैटल फार्मिंग भी बहुत ज़्यादा होती है. We won the first prizes by the score. My father pinned his blue ribbons on the sheet of white muslin, and when friends or visitors came to the house, he would get out the long sheet of muslin. He would hold one end and I would hold the other while he exhibited the blue ribbons. Show off करते थे कि हमने ये प्राइज जीता है. The hogs didn't care about the ribbons they had won. Exactly. Exactly. Hogs means pigs, जो कि कैटल जो यूज होते हैं वहाँ पर फूड के भी रूप में और उन उनको उनका पॉपुलेशन इंक्रीज किया जाता है कैटल फार्मिंग जिसको बोलते हैं. But father did. These prizes gave him a feeling of importance. If our ancestors hadn't had this flaming urge for a feeling of importance, civilization would have been impossible. Without it, we should have been just about like animals. Yes, initially, and still there are a lot of people who want to be considered as really important people in their life. So it was this desire for a feeling of importance that led an uneducated, poverty stricken grocery clerk to study some law books he found in the bottom of a barrel of household plunder that he had bought for 50 cents. You have probably heard of his grocery clerk. His name was Lincoln. It was his desire for feeling of importance that inspired Dickens to write his immortal novels. This desire inspired Sir Christopher Wren to design his symphonies in stone. This desire made Rockefeller amass millions that he never spent, and the same desire made the richest family in your town build a house far too large for its requirements. The desire makes you want to hear the latest styles, drive the latest cars, and talk about your brilliant children. So I basically don't do any of it. I just want to follow my intuition, and I'm happy with that. लेकिन आई एग्री कि बहुत सारे लोगों के अंदर वो डिज़ायर है कि मुझे ये अचीव करना है, इसकी वजह से ये होता है। It is desire that lures many boys and girls into joining gangs and engaging in criminal activities. The average young criminal, according to E.P. Mulrooney, one-time police commissioner of New York, is filled with ego, and his first request after the arrest is for those lurid newspaper make him out a hero. The disagreeable prospect of serving time seems remote so long as he can gloat over his likeness, sharing space with picture sports figure, movie and TV stars and politician. इससे मुझे एक गाना याद आ रहा है। मेरा फेवरेट एक्चुअली मतलब इतना फेवरेट है कि मैं कोई सिंगर तो हूँ नहीं, कोई भी सब लोग गा लेते हैं वैसे आई आल्सो सिंग। लेकिन ये गाना मैंने एक शॉर्ट्स के रूप में गाया है एंड आई एम हैप्पी दैट इट इज़ वन ऑफ द मोस्ट वॉच्ड शॉर्ट्स ऑफ मी। ये महलों, ये तख्तों, ये ख्वाबों की दुनिया, ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है? वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम अगो आई रियलाइज्ड दिस कि व्हाट इफ आई बिकम रियली द रूलर ऑफ दिस वर्ल्ड, उससे होगा क्या? व्हाट एग्जैक्टली आई एम अचीविंग? एंड देन आई इमेजिन कि ये बहुत स्ट्रेसफुल होगा क्योंकि कोई भी ऐसा रूलर नहीं है जिसको कि नीचे करने की इच्छा कुछ और लोगों में ना हो। So it is not peaceful at all. So I thought, nah, it's not a good idea. Okay, so अभी भी लेकिन ऑथर जो है वो बात कर ही रहे हैं क्योंकि आई एग्री ये बहुत सारे लोग ऐसा चाहते हैं जस्ट टू मेक देम फील इम्पोर्टेंट। ये ऐसा बहुत सारे लोग चाहते हैं। If you tell me how you get your feelings of importance, I will tell you what you are. Sorry, not me. That determines your character. That is the most significant thing about you. For example, John D. Rockefeller got his feeling of importance by giving money to erect a modern hospital in Peking, China, to care for millions of poor families whom he had never seen and never would. Dillinger, on the other hand, got his feeling of importance by being a bandit, a bank robber, and killer. When the FBI agents were hunting him, he dashed into a farmhouse up in Minnesota and said, I'm Dillinger. He was proud of the fact that he was public enemy number one. I'm not going to hurt you, but I'm Dillinger, he said. Yes, the one significant difference between Dillinger and Rockefeller is that how they got the feelings of importance. History sparkles with amusing examples of famous people struggling for a feeling of importance. Even George Washington wanted to be called His Mightiness, the President of the United States. The Columbus pleaded for the title Admiral of the Ocean and Viceroy of India. Catherine the Great refused to open letters that were not addressed to her Imperial Majesty and Mrs. Lincoln in the White House and turned upon Mrs. Grant like a tigress and shouted, How dare you to be seated in my presence until I invite you? Oh my God. Our Millennials helped finance Admiral Byrd expedition to the Antarctic in 1928 with understandings that a range of icy mountains would be named after them. And Victor Hugo aspired to have nothing less than a city of Paris renamed in his honor. He tried to add preparing live stream. What does it mean? Even Shakespeare, mightiest of the mighty, tried to add luster to his name by procuring a coat of arms for his family. Sorry, I lost the track and I'm back here again. People sometimes become invalids in order to win sympathy and attention and get a feeling of importance. For example, take Mrs. McKinley. She got a feeling of importance by forcing her husband, the President of the United States, to neglect important affairs of state while he reclined on the bed beside her for hours at a time, his arm about her, soothing her to sleep. She fed her gnawing desire for attention by insisting that he remained with her while she was having her teeth fixed, and once created a stormy scene when he had to leave her alone. with the dentist while he kept an appointment with John Hay, the Secretary of State. The writer Mary Roberts Reinhardt once told me of a bright, vigorous young woman who became an invalid in order to get a feeling of importance. One day, said Mrs. Reinhardt, this woman had been obliged to face something, her age perhaps, the lonely years were stretching ahead, and there was little left for her to anticipate. She took to her a bed, and for 10 years, and her old mother traveled to the third floor and back, carrying trays, nursing her. And one day, the old mother, weary with service, lay down and died. For some weeks, the invalid languished. Then she got up, put her clothing, and resumed living again. सो बड़े दो शानदार एग्जाम्पल हैं यहाँ पर। एक तो मिसेस मैकिनली जो फर्स्ट लेडी थी और वो अपने हस्बैंड को जो प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स थे, उनको फोर्स कर देती थी कि वो जब उनके दाँत साफ किए जाएँ तो वो वहीं बैठे रहे। और एक बहुत ही अच्छी यंग औरत थी जो कि अपने आप को उसने इनवैलिड बना दिया ताकि वो लोग उसको इम्पोर्टेंस दे सकें। और ऐसा तब तक हुआ जब तक जो उसकी माँ मर गई। तो फिर कुछ हफ्तों तक वो वैसे ही बेड पर पड़ी रहीं। फिर उठी और उन्होंने जीना शुरू कर दिया। वेरी इंस्पायरिंग कि लोग क्या-क्या कर सकते हैं। Some authorities declare that people may actually go insane in order to find in the dreamland of insanity the feeling of importance that has been denied them in the harsh world of reality. There were more patients suffering from mental diseases in the United States than from all the other diseases combined. What is the cause of insanity? Nobody can answer such a sweeping question, but we know that certain diseases, such as syphilis, break down and destroy the brain cells and result in insanity. Insanity यानी पागलपन क्या होता है? तो आज की डेट में तो इसके बहुत सारे आंसर्स हैं, बट जो ऑथर ने लिखा है, सिफिलिस एक एसटीडी है यानी सेक्सुअली ट्रांसमिटेड डिजीज और बहुत ही खतरनाक है क्योंकि उसकी वजह से दिमाग के सेल्स पे भी असर पड़ता है और इट क्रिएट्स कॉजेस मेंटल diseases like insanity. So, in fact, one half of all mental diseases can be attributed to such physical causes as brain lesions, alcohol, toxin, and injuries. But the other half, and this is the appalling part of the story, the other half of the people who go insane apparently have nothing organically wrong with their brain cells. In postmortem examinations, when their brain tissues are studied under the highest powered microscope, these tissues are found to be apparently just as healthy as yours and mine. Why do these people go insane? यानी कुछ बीमारियां तो होती हैं, लेकिन कुछ लोग ऐसे ही बिहेवियर उनका क्यों होता है, ये एक सोचने वाली बात है। तो ऑथर का कहना है कि कोई अपैरेंटली ऐसा कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होता, लेकिन फिर भी प्रॉब्लम है। तो ऐसे लोग पागल क्यों हो जाते हैं? ये सवाल है। I put that question to the head physician of one of our most important psychiatric hospitals. This doctor, who has received the highest honors and the most coveted awards for his knowledge of this subject, told me frankly that he didn't know why people went insane. Nobody knows for sure, but he did say that many people who go insane find in insanity a feeling of importance that they were unable to achieve in the world of reality. Then he told me the story. सही बात है, जो बहुत सारी चीज़ें जो होती हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें होती हैं। चूँकि ये बुक रीडिंग का टाइम है, तो I don't want to discuss mental health here. But yes, जो हमारा जो परसेप्शन है, अगर वो रियल नहीं है, तो हम लोग अज्यूम कर लेते हैं बहुत सारी चीजें, नोइंगली अननोइंगली गलत कर लेते हैं और फिर उसी को सही मानते हैं। तो वो जो हमारा परसेप्शन है, दैट बिकम्स रियलिटी, एंड दैट इज इंसैनिटी. So he told me a story. I have a patient right now whose marriage proved to be a tragedy. She wanted love, sexual gratification, children, and social prestige. But life blasted all her hopes. Her husband didn't love her. He refused even to eat with her and forced her to serve his meals in his room upstairs. She had no children, no social standing. She went insane, and her imagination. She divorced her husband and resumed her maiden name. She now believes that she has married into English aristocracy, and she insisted on being called as Lady Smith. तो इनके पेशेंट्स जो थी, उनको विवाह से उनको कोई ऐसा सुख नहीं मिला जिनकी उनको कोई इच्छा थी. उनके हस्बैंड उनके साथ खाना भी पसंद नहीं करते थे. तो वो पागल हो गई. इस पागलपन का नाम अभी होगा जरूर है. आई डोंट वांट टू डायग्नोस, कोई मतलब नहीं बनता. तो उन्होंने अपने इमेजिनेशन में अपने आप को डिवोर्स्ड समझा और अपना मेडन नेम, जो उनका मतलब अनमैरिड अविवाहित जो नाम था, वो उन्होंने रख लिया. और अब वो चाहती थी कि उनको सब लोग लेडी स्मिथ बुलाएं, क्योंकि उनकी शादी उनकी इमेजिनेशन में एक इंग्लिश एरिस्टोक्रेटिक फैमिली में, अभिजात्य घर में उनका विवाह हो गया. And as for children, she imagines now that she has had a new child every night. Each time I call on her, she says, Doctor, I had a baby last night. Life once wrecked all her dream ships on the sharp rocks of reality, but in the sunny fantasy isles of insanity, all her barkentines raced into the port with canvas billowing and wind singing through the masts. Tragic. Oh, I don't know, her physician said to me. If I could stretch out my hand and restore her sanity, I wouldn't do it. She's much happier as she is. अब इंटरेस्टिंग बात तो ये है कि वो अपने इस प्रिटेंड वर्ल्ड में वो बहुत खुश थी. तो डॉक्टर ने भी बोला कि मैं उन्हें उनकी जो सैनिटी है उसको मैं रिज्यूम नहीं करना चाहता, रिस्टोर नहीं करना चाहता, क्योंकि वो खुश है. If some people are so hungry for a feeling of importance, I won't comment here, that they actually go insane to get it. My God, imagine what miracle you and I can achieve by giving people honest appreciation this side of insanity. Totally, totally. Be honest always. One of the first people, and also we should accept the honest opinion, not the pretend ones. It's never good. One of the first people in American business to be paid a salary over $1 million a year when there was no income tax and person earning $50 a week were considered well off. तो $1 million उस जमाने में was Charles Schwab, who had been picked by Andrew Carnegie to become the first president of the newly formed United States Steel Company in 1921 when he was only 38 years old. Schwab later left US Steel to take over the then troubled Bethlehem Steel Company, and he rebuilt it into the most profitable companies in America. Why did Andrew Carnegie pay $1 million a year, or more than the $3,000 a day to Charles Schwab? Why? Because Schwab was a genius? No. Because he knew more about the manufacture of the steel than other people. Nonsense? Nonsense. Sorry, wrong expression. Charles Schwab told me himself that he had many men working for him who knew more about the manufacture of steel than he did. This is really interesting. Schwab says that he was paid his salary largely because of his ability to deal with people. I totally agree. अगर आपको लोगों के साथ डील करना आता है ना, तो बहुत सारी चीजें करने को मिल सकती हैं. बहुत सारी. ये बिल्कुल सही बात है. I asked him how he did it. I have experienced. Here is his secret set down in his own words. words that ought to be cast in eternal bronze and hung in every home, school, every shop and office in the land. Words that children ought to memorize instead of wasting their time memorizing the conjugation of Latin verbs or the amount of annual rainfall in Brazil. Words that will but transform your life and mine if we only live them. I consider my ability rousing enthusiasm amongst my people. The greatest, said Schwab, the greatest asset I possess, and the way I to develop the best in a person is by appreciation and encouragement. अब यहाँ पे I just add that people who are like me, they can actually sense that if you are genuine or not. क्योंकि टाइम बदल गया है. There are some people like me who can actually sense. तो अगर कोई उन्हें सिर्फ जो है आपको कोई कॉम्प्लीमेंट करे, as I said before, I don't trust the compliment. I immediately start looking for that what's the reason, what's the motive. So that's how it is. Okay, let's continue. So I'm going to read this the last page. This is the page 21. There's nothing else that so kills the ambitions of a person as criticism from superiors. I never criticize anyone. I believe in giving a person incentive to work. So I'm anxious to praise, but loath to find fault. If I like anything, I'm hearty in my approbation and lavish in my praise. This is what Schwab did. But what do average people do? They exact opposite. If they don't like a thing, they bawl out their subordinates. If they do like it, they say nothing. So true, so true. As the old couplet said, once I did bad and I heard ever, twice I did good, that I heard never. In my wide association in life, meeting with many and great people in various parts of the world, Shaw declared, I have yet to find the person, however great or exalted his station, who did not do better work and put forth greater effort under a spirit of approval that he would ever do under a spirit of criticism. I agree with this part. Criticism karke, you will bring down the person. That, he said frankly, was one of the outstanding reasons for the phenomenal success of Andrew Carnegie. Andrew praises his associate publicly as well as privately. Carnegie wanted to praise his assistants. Even on his tombstone, he wrote an epitaph for himself, which read, Here lies one who knew how to get around him men who were cleverer than himself. Sincere appreciation was one of the secrets of John D. Rockefeller's success in handling men. For example, one of his partner, Edward D. Bedford, lost $1 million for the firm by a bad guy. In South America, John D. might have criticized, but he knew Bedford had done his best and the incident was closed. So Rockefeller found something to praise. He congratulated Bedford because he had been able to save 60% of the money he had invested. That's splendid, said Rockefeller. We don't always do as well as that upstairs. I have among my clippings a story that I know never happened, but it illustrates the truth. So I'll repeat it. According to this silly story, a farm woman at the end of heavy day's work set before her menfolks a heavy heaping pile of hay, sorry, and then indignantly demanded whether she had gone crazy. She replied, Why, how did I know you would notice? I have been cooking for you men for the last 20 years. And in all that time, I ain't heard no words to let me know that you wasn't just eating hay. When a study was made a few years ago, a runway wives, what do you think was discovered to be the main reasons wife ran away? It was lack of appreciation. I would better bet that a similar study made of runway husbands would come out the same way. We often take our spouses so much for granted that we never let them know that we appreciate them. A member of one of our classes told of a request made by his wife. She and a group of other women in her church were involved in self-improvement program. She asked her husband to help her by listing 6 things he believed she could do to help herself become a better wife. He reported to the class. I was surprised by such a request. Frankly, it would have been easier for me to the list 6 things I would like to change about her. My heavens, she would have listed 1,000 things she would like to change about me. But I didn't. I said to her, let me think about it and give you answer in the morning. The next morning, I got up early and called the florist and had them send 6 roses to my wife with a note saying, I can't think of 6 things I would like to change about you. I love you the way you are. When I arrived at home in the evening, who do you think greeted me at the door? That's right, my wife. She was almost in tears. Needless to say, I was extremely glad that I had not criticized her as she had requested. The following Sunday at church, after she had reported the results of her assignment, several women with whom she had been studying came up to me and said, that was the most considerate thing I have ever heard. It was then I realized the power of appreciation. Okay, so the power of appreciation is good. And it should be very genuine. I again insist. आई एम प्रिटी श्योर कि सारे लोग करते हैं, बट आई डू जब वो अ, मतलब ऊपर ऊपर से आ रहा होता है. आई अंडरस्टैंड. फ्लोरेंस. अच्छा, आई हैव टू स्टॉप हियर बिकॉज जो अगला पैराग्राफ है दैट stretches to the page 22. So I'll stop here. It seems that it will take a long time, but I am definitely enjoying this way. Or whoever would like to listen to this can always, right? So thank you so much for listening.